Comes a day after President Trump threatened to shut down the federal government over funding for the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Here's a look back at what the president said and how lawmakers are now reacting to it. Watch this.
Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, if we have to close down our government, we're building that wall.
I don't think anyone's interested in having a shutdown. I don't think it's in our interest to do so. While we work on doing what we actually said we would do, what we've done already in the House, and we need to do, which is to control our border. So I don't think you have to choose between the two.
We can build a wall cheaper than we can build an interstate, and we need to do it, and it will pay for itself, I believe, before we can even get it completed.
So Heather, what do you think are the odds of a government shutdown happening over this? The Wall Street Journal has an editorial on this, and they always kind of write sometimes directly at President Trump. And they said this is the political equivalent of holding a gun to his own head and saying that if Congress doesn't do what he wants, Mr. Trump will shoot himself. Don't expect Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer to try and talk Mr. Trump out of it. And then they go on to add, the shutdown over the wall is one threat he'd be wise to abandon.
I think you have to understand the shutdown threat that Trump articulated as a negotiating tactic. He wants to be negotiating from strength to get his agenda in. If he says, well, I won't go to a shutdown, then he's already lost his ability to compel the kind of a result that he wants. So just because he says that he would be willing to shut the government down over this does not mean that he's actually going to shut the government down.
But he could have said, I'm going to get you your border wall regardless, but not threaten the government shutdown. And he's negotiating from a much weaker position because of his polling numbers. That's a question, not a statement.
His base wants to see that he is uncowed, that he is fighting for them, that he's fighting for the things that he said that he was elected to do, and that they believe that he was elected to do, and that he's not going to back down just because it's now politically expedient to do so.
I think the challenge is he realized with the repeal only that didn't go forward that he's sitting in his office with his pen in hand, and his power is limited because if nothing gets brought to him, he can't sign. This is something where he has power. Heather, to your point, there's no executive order, but his executive right is to sign a bill that he can choose not to sign. So I think it is negotiating leverage. The reality is whether or not it'll come to pass. But I agree, he's a deal guy, and he's always looking for the things that he can use as chips on his side.
Yeah, but I also wonder, like, when would he ever want to cash that chip in? Because that seems like that'd be pretty politically damaging. The Democrats would obviously use that forever. You know, all that's going on, plus the government shutdown, that doesn't seem like something that would be...
And border wall is important among his most ardent supporters, but in overall polling of Republicans, it's tax reform and military spending that are higher way higher than the border wall. But we'll see. But one thing I want to point out, the fighting between Trump and McConnell. Just look, McConnell was speaking with Steve Mnuchin earlier in the week. I mean, that says that McConnell is focused on the agenda.
Yeah, they're totally focused. And in fact, there's a lot of this. They're not talking about it yet, but my understanding is that a lot of the details have actually been hammered out. They're not going to talk about it until after they come back after the recess because they don't want it to be picked at. They want to minimize the picking at it time. But there's a substantial agreement on where they're going to come out on a lot of this stuff that's already laid down pretty
tightly. Get down. Let's do this. Come on.
Get her done, isn't that what you say?
I didn't say get her done, but I just did. There you go, Mitch. You made me do it.